was interested in John Tate. I mean, he's representing the council here. And you know, if you folks out there are getting tired of all the shutdowns, all the closures, all the masks, all this BS, you know where to go to find it. You know, it's the mayor and the council. It's elected officials that are the enablers, as you say, Doc.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are putting it out there, and then the Bowersox and the Letneys. Boy, there's your gunman.
Well, we're ready. Jim's got his coffee. Welcome back to Talking Racine. George Myers on my left.
With my coffee.
With his coffee.
Yeah.
Jim Spodek on the right, producer extraordinaire and connoisseur of coffee. Me, I'm just Dr. Jorgen, just hanging in here with these two. And today we're going to talk about a little more of what we covered last week, which is the Safer at Home ordinance, Safer Racine ordinance, which was appealed by Will, Wisconsin Institute of Liberty and Law. Is that it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, or Law and Liberty, one or the other. And they said it's unreasonable to cause these schools to be closed, which we agree with. They took their case to the court, Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, well, we're going to put an injunction on this Safer at Home order as it pertains to schools, and then come on back in on such and such a date, and we'll talk about it more. Well, then the city came back and said, oh, well, you know, this is not just an order. This is an ordinance that was passed, and the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction as far as an ordinance like this is concerned, so you're still going to have to stay closed, and we're going to fine you if you stay open. And that's where we're at now.
Right.
And it's, well, it's Scott Letney and it's Public Health Administrator Dottie Bowersox, who are, I think more than anyone else, are pushing this issue. And it's, I believe, $250 a day fine that
Correct.
can be levied.
Yep. And these are private schools mostly. I think a lot of the private schools had been open. The public schools or unified school system had been closed. The public school or the private schools had been open. I believe they updated the Safer at Home ordinance and then said because of the spike in the virus, we're going to close the private schools. They were kind of caught off guard, and they filed this, asked for an injunction and received it. But I believe if you want to take it, George, is that Will, their attorneys, really didn't take in consideration the ordinance, and they should have attacked the ordinance. And there's
Here's the way I look at it. Now, Doc, if you were right that the Supreme Court, if their argument was there was no jurisdiction under the ordinance, then that may be
Under the order.
Under the order, yeah. I didn't get that. I got that that there was this ban, and that the Supreme Court said that the ban was illegal, and that they were it might be illegal, but they were going to put a restriction on enforcing it until such date that he could hear more about it.
Yeah, that's the injunction.
That's right. The injunction, yeah. Right. But I don't think the issue was the source of the order. I think it was of the order itself.
Well, you're right about that, but the city did a backdoor end around, and they changed the ordinance.
No,
now the ordinance, the city does have a right legally to create and enforce ordinances, and that's how they got around the injunction that the Supreme Court gave them. You know,
I didn't pick that.
That's
that
the way
up at
I
all.
saw it.
All right, here's what I'm looking at. If you go back, what was it, a month or two, a while back when Judge Fredrickson had the case
on the gym
with the gym,
right.
You have two items. You have an order that's from Dottie Bowersox. That's his public health order, and then you have an ordinance that the city council passed. Both of them are essentially the same thing. It closes things down. All right, but it's the source of these two documents that is at issue in at least the first time. All right, the source being the source to close things down says, "Thou shalt close down your gym." If it came from Dottie Bowersox, she does not have that authority. If it came as a result of an ordinance, then the city does have that authority.
I think we're saying the same thing. Maybe I wasn't real clear.
Well, except when it got to this current one, my understanding is that it was closing down schools because they are a hazard, and the schools are claiming, no, there's no evidence of that at all. There's no evidence that schools are causing a transmission of the COVID virus, or whatever you want to call it. All right? They are challenging that statement. And what happened is that Will was challenging that very statement, but it was in the order. Well, if he had put it in as the ordinance, he probably would have gotten the restraining order also, but he didn't. They accidentally used the order, and so the city's saying, "You got a restraining order on the order." Ha ha ha. We're gonna continue with it because we have an ordinance.
Well, and they actually altered the ordinance.
I don't know that they altered the ordinance.
I think they did.
Well, what they did on the
source.
23rd of November, they came in and said, well, all along, the ordinance basically said everything should be closed down. I mean, one of our questions was, well, who is the one that can pick you're open and you're not open? So the private schools basically stayed open while the public schools closed. They said the spike now, we're going to close the private schools too. Of course, they said, hey, wait a second, we've adhered to all the requirements that the ordinance asked for, and why are we closing?
And there's no evidence that we are transmitting it, so why are we having to close down?
But what the city said, nope, we're not going to hear any of it, you're going to close down, and truthfully, if their lawsuit had been and brought in the ordinance, they may have had a shot at actually staying open. I
think that's what that's the difference that we have. If they had brought in the ordinance and challenged the ordinance, I think they would have gotten.
But here's the difference. So let's just go back to the gym.
But the cities are entitled to write ordinances and enforce.
That's right, and the courts may put an injunction against the ordinance.
But here's the thing,
because it was unfair for the reasons Jim spoke.
Right, but here's the other thing. Why is it that when Frederickson brought the case in with and said, this is way too broad, this ordinance is, the safer at home ordinance is way too broad, it can't be handled, it's basically unconstitutional. They then brought an ordinance and said, well, it's an ordinance and we're going to do what we want here. And of course, if they would have appealed that, I don't think the gym had the money or the time.
That was the problem. Well, it wasn't appealed.
And it should have been appealed because I think Frederickson's order was the correct one that said it's unconstitutional, it's too broad, and it's impossible to...
and the ordinance would have been the same thing if it just copied it, which it did. It copied just a lot of it.
But they came in and basically, the private schools came in and said basically, we're adhering to all the requirements and we feel we should be open, Your Honor. And well, that's fine. You can argue all you want there. We're still not going to let you open because we have an ordinance that says you got to close. Now, I want to bring in what reasons do you think? What reasons do you think that they are so
dead set on closing down the schools?
On these private schools.
Well,
I mean, you really think it's
I know that Unified is very closely entangled with Corey Mason's psyche.
Exactly.
And Unified is gladly shutting things down. You know, all the school teachers get to stay home.
Love it.
Piece of cake. They don't lose any money. They still get all their money from the taxpayers.
Who's getting their butt kicked? Unified.
Yeah, Unified looks really bad because the other schools are continuing.
They'd leave. What are these schools? Why are these private schools? They're doing well. I mean, they're fully occupied.
Yeah, kids are still learning.
Parents are taking their kids out of Unified and saying, listen, I'm done with that Unified. I'm going over to this private school or homeschooling or whatever it might be because I want my kids in school.
And Dottie Bowersox is now saying, we're showing you think you can put them over in some safe place like a private school?
And I think there's more going on there than I think. There's not a danger here. I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, there's a spike in this virus, but it doesn't show up in these schools. This is more political. This is more political to me than the actual...
The big scare when the first thing came out and nobody knew anything about it was these little kids. I remember the story. One little kid gives it to his friend who infects his mother. So you gave your mother, your friend's mother, the COVID. That was the big thing that schools were doing. And I found out later, no, these little kids, in fact, we discussed that a long time ago. Yeah. If you look at the area the little kids cover, and their little, they're
Just the volume of their air,
yeah,
and the height of where they're
little tiny kid.
Yeah, I mean,
the 6 foot suddenly closes down to about 2 foot.
But here's where I think it is. I think it's more political, because why are we having these horrible? We got spikes everywhere. The whole state of Wisconsin apparently, and I don't see these schools. But Unified, Madison, Milwaukee, they've got there's a danger to the public school system. They've had it very good for a long time. They've raised a heck of a lot of money, and George, you're in a suit with them now. But I think there's more politics being played here than actual.
I think you've got every good reason to suspect that, John.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I don't think it's necessary to prove it.
No.
I mean, it's a good theory.
If you're stealing,
Corey might not even be conscious of the fact that it could be subconsciously that he's doing it.
There's nothing subconscious about this. I think this is the discussion.
He dreams about evil things. He's just constantly, we're going to close down. He's got somehow.
With a black cape.
I wonder if Dottie Bauer socks could be an assistance to this.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that these schools went to the city and said, we've done everything you've asked. We haven't been having a problem, and why the heck are
Asked
you
for a
closing us down?
meeting, asked to,
And it begs the question, what is an essential worker? What's an essential business? I mean, aren't schools pretty much essential?
I would think so.
As much as a lot of other things that are
Right.
open.
I mean, the grocery store, the Home Depot, that's essential, but the school's not? Is that what you're trying to bring up?
Yeah.
Oh, and the casinos in Las Vegas are
There
definitely
you go.
essential.
But the church is closed.
The churches you can close, though.
Yeah. Right.
If something isn't essential, it probably doesn't exist. No, the reason it comes about and people produce
Hey,
that
wait a
product.
minute. You're talking to an audience that remembers the pet rock.
Well, some people might have needed that. I mean,
It might be still pet there.
it's cheaper than what
a
kind of
chia
dog?
pet.
What do they call those pets now? The dogs and stuff that you're.
Virtual pets?
No, compassion animals or something like
Yeah,
that.
Oh,
companion
companion
animal.
animal.
Yeah. See, I mean,
Well, the chia pet, that's Christmas now. The
pet
chia
rock
pet
may have been
shows
a
up.
companion.
Yeah.
And people would put that
They
on
have all kinds of essential things.
their mantle and feel comfortable every time they look at that pet rock.
I'm curious to see how this plays out, because they did file a contempt order on the city of Racine. Well, it'll be interesting to see how the courts view it. I don't know.
Well, I think we're all in favor of them allowing the schools to be open. If it becomes a problem, then you address the problem.
Right.
But there's no indication that it will be a problem.
No.
And it hasn't been a problem.
No.
So, and a lot of these kids are in homes where the parents are not accustomed to having them around, and the
Right.
parents are not equipped to teach them. So, I mean, they're losing all of this.
Well, some kids, the only way they get a decent meal is to go to school.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of homes that aren't real functional. Let's put it that way, and the schools help with that.
Right. The schools
Help
sometimes
get the kids get through it anyway. Now, I don't think that should be a purpose of schools, but in this environment
In
where
reality,
we have
it's
now,
what it
right,
is,
it is. And so when you start closing that down, you're just making home living worse. You're just making the community
And are these
worse
kids
off.
really getting an education virtually? I mean, let's face it. I mean, this was not. It's over and over. It's been proven that it hasn't really been set up well. It's all new to not only the students, to the teachers, to the administration. It really has been just kind of dumped on them. And there's a lot of other things we can go into. But
Which brings me to Mr. John Tate, the president of the council, who defends the 6-month extension on all this BS. This is basically coming from the city council. We mostly hear about Dottie Bowersox because she puts her signature on it and her order on it. But it was authorized by an ordinance. Is that what we've been talking about?
They're the enablers.
The enabler. It was the city council, and John Tate is right now as the president of the city council. And he's saying nearly 9 months later, the city is in worse position in terms of the number of positive cases and increasing number of deaths than it was at the beginning. Now that is a totally false argument. We are, whatever else we want to say, we are in a better position now. We've had more people get through it. More people become immune to it.
We have a better understanding of it.
And a better understanding of it. We are way off better than we were months ago. And when finally everybody has had it, then we will have really gotten the best of it, and we will be done with it. But, I just what I've seen and what I've, just look at it a little bit. Even the people that are, you're going to isolate and put into keep at home or something like that, somewhere along the line, over the year that it's taking us to deal with this, they're going to come in contact with somebody else.
Yeah.
They're going to, unless you can totally put them in solitary confinement, which will probably destroy them, they're going to eventually come in contact with it, and if they're not ready to deal with it, they're going to die from it. So all I'm saying is that the way you get through a virus like this is you get through it. You can't stop it. You can't stop it with masks. You can't stop it with you can slow it down a little bit, but just remember, when you slow it down, you're lengthening the time that you're going to have it. So Tate, this 9 months later, we're in worse position, is just doesn't understand how these viruses work, and we are better off. And when something like the schools are shown to not be speeding it along, you might want to put it the way you put it, then just let them go ahead and function, and the rest of us can figure out on our own without penalizing the kids.
Okay, I got a question. We've got $1 billion on the line with Unified, and we're talking about building schools and increasing the footprint of Unified. If we're going to continue on with this virtual learning, do we need that $1 billion for these?
Yeah.
But speaking of, what I'm leading into is, wasn't there a judge that basically Judge Piantek, who was the judge on that Unified School recount appeal now that's in the appeals court? Judge Piantek is now leaving and retiring. Where does that leave?
Who picks up the lawsuit? Who's going to be the judge in the case?
Now that we have that appeal will not be back in time after Piantek leaves the system, the court system.
If it gets referred back, you mean? Or
Yeah.
if we
Well,
win
it will
our
at
appeal?
some point. I got a feeling it's going to come back. It's going to come back either saying, "Hey, you made a mistake," or we affirm the judge's decision, which I don't believe they're going to do.
Well, then you would have to have a new judge.
And we're going to just pick up. Do we pick up the one that's appointed, or do we get a new? Or do you get a new
chance
to
move for
move to another court?
What's the term again when you
Move to a new venue? You're talking about?
no when a judge recuses
himself? Yeah.
Would you have a motion for recusal?
Well, one thing we would
point?
check this time, darn sure, and make sure beforehand, is make sure there is no connection to Unified. That's what we didn't do with Piantek carefully enough.
Yeah.
And he had vaguely mentioned that he had shook hands with somebody or something at Unified, and we found out later on that he had been hired by somebody at Unified to.
Well, he was on a school board for crying out loud.
He was on a school board. Yeah.
I mean, what the hell?
Yeah. So it was.
I mean, only in Racine. Only in Racine.
Well, you would hope so, but I think there's other communities that get problems.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we're finding that out. Racine, Fortunately, we have a guy like the guy two rows down here, Jim Spodek, that digs into things and finds things out for you, and then we get to discuss them. But
okay.
Because most communities don't have this
Yeah.
type of thing, is all, and we're digging.
Okay,
in
well,
to
let's
find
bring
out
up
for
one more
stuff.
thing. What about the million? We brought it up last week. $1 million from
yes.
Facebook or Zuckerman.
Where did the $1 million go?
Where's the $1 million? Now there's a lawsuit by asking basically the same question. Where's that $1 million in Racine and Green
What did
Bay?
you use it for? How was it used?
Right.
Who spent it on what? That kind
Correct.
of thing.
Correct.
And if it comes under the auspices of a political donation, there's a lot more restrictions on it.
Correct.
I mean, what did they label it as when they passed it out as?
Well, I think the lawsuits, I don't know, and that's one of the questions. It just seems like this money showed up as grant money or whatever to the city in Green Bay and Madison and Milwaukee. But the lawsuit is asking if this was used for, if it had strings attached. Do you set up voting booths? Are you involved in the election process? And they're saying that is not legal.
Right,
And
they
if
just
that
have to
was
give
done
it to you.
that way,
No strings attached.
Yeah,
it's legal.
electioneering. If it was a political action committee, you could use it for electioneering. But if it's just money that
it's
comes
donated.
in, I mean, there's a lot of restrictions on
So
it.
how are they using it? And it had apparently some strings attached to it.
Well,
so
it's
now
worth
they're
finding
asking.
out,
And I don't know. You're talking about 30,000 voters in the city of Racine, and you're talking $1 million. I mean, you do the math on that.
We
That's
did.
an awful lot of money. Yeah,
It's
we did.
$36.67 a piece.
So you get $36 a head, and we're not talking about if it's going to be Corey Mason, it's going to be the city of Racine. They're going to target Democrats. They're going to say we're going to try to get out as many Democrats as we can. They're not going to go out there and campaign to Republicans or independents or libertarians. They're going to focus on the Democratic. So that money's going to be a higher amount. But did that money really get used for what it claims to do?
Well, it's good that somebody is pressing the
Yeah.
inquiry.
This ballot harvesting has been declared. I don't know if it's illegal in Wisconsin.
It is
or not.
illegal.
It is
Yeah,
illegal.
the only state
okay.
that it's legal in is California. You can't ballot harvest. That's not legal.
That ballot harvesting is when you go out with a ballot to somebody, with their mail, and you get them to fill it out, and then you take it
Right,
in.
we'll take it back for you.
And the problem with
We
that
actually
is,
did a show on that, Georgia, a while back.
yeah, and the problem with that is that if the person harvesting the ballot can say, well, I don't like the way they voted, and so you take it and throw it in a garbage can on your way to the next person. So,
Well, the other thing is what this lawsuit is claiming that persons that were institutionalized, be it nursing homes or institutions that had limited access, that it increased from roughly about 75,000 voters to over 200,000 voters. And they're saying, how was this possibly done? In all these other elections, there was a certain amount, but in this particular one, it was considerably more.
A lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work. So.
People were out there knocking on doors.
There's a lot, and we know that there's some of this.
well, one of
nationally
them,
and
one
some
of the jurisdiction, they actually got 105% of the legal voters, not the registered voters, the legal voters.
Right.
Now, that is some hard work.
But anyway, I mean, but beside that, I mean, the question is, where's the $1 million? And we asked the question, and now there's obviously a lawsuit asking the same question.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's something we can revisit later
Right.
on when more information is known. In the meantime,
We have a new alderman too.
yeah, we do. We have a new alderman in the 10th district, and his name is
Samuel Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Samuel Pete.
So-
Where have we seen him before?
He ran against Corey Glenn in the election.
Oh my goodness! Did he win?
No.
Oh,
So it's happy days at City Hall. they're
But he was the
selected.
chosen candidate to
Yeah,
oppose
right.
Alderman
yeah,
Glenn.
yeah. He was
And
picked by the.
yeah, that was an automatic. You figured that was going to happen. So it is. It
Well,
is what
somebody
it is.
was it Henry that objected? Henry Perez?
I don't know.
I
Somebody
think it was.
said that
I think it was the one.
Somebody
person
of
that-
similar political
Yeah.
viewpoint.
It
should go
shows
into-
how the council's going, man.
Yeah.
14 or 13, whatever it was, 14 people voted
Yeah.
for him.
When you've gotten to the bottom of the hill, do you still go downhill? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I don't
Was
know
it
where else.
bottom out?
I don't know where else they can go. Quite honestly, I mean it's.
Well, it's just another bobblehead, is what it is. I mean, Sam's probably a decent guy, but he's definitely in
Yeah,
the
he's
hip
entrenched.
pocket.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why they wanted him to run against Kerry, and there's a reason why they brought him in after she
Right.
passed away.
Right.
So and it's not because he's going to argue with him. I'll guarantee
Exactly.
you that.
Exactly.
So, George.
Did we cover
Oh no,
everything?
I think we did cover it. That was the only article. that you
I
had,
wanted
and there was
to.
that.
I wanted to. Yeah, I was interested in John Tate. I mean, he's representing the council here, and if you folks out there are getting tired of all the shutdowns, all the closures, all the masks, all this BS, you know where to go to find it. It's the mayor and the council. It's elected officials that are the enablers, as you say, Doc.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are putting it out there, and then the Bower Sox and the Letneys. Boy, there's your gunmen, and they're out there doing the thing. So there's a way to handle it, and it'll be coming up this spring. Let's see, we are just starting the circulation of nomination
Yeah, it
papers
starts
now.
on the 1st of December.
1st
right?
of December,
Yeah.
and it's going to end, I think, on the first Tuesday in January. So
So if you want to run in an even numbered district, no, odd numbered.
Odd number.
odd number
numbered
districts,
district.
and yeah,
Now's the time to throw your hat in the ring
yeah.
and start working.
I'm sure you'll find people that will support you. There's people that are tired of this, tired of the John Tates. In fact, he is in the 3rd district, so his seat is coming up, and
Good. Well, hopefully all the districts have somebody running. Everybody should have an opponent. I mean, that just is good.
Well, yeah,
Competition
it is.
is good.
If
Yep.
nothing else, it generates a conversation.
Absolutely.
yeah. That would be very good. And then we find out we'll find out what people are thinking about it. If they're going to put these people right back in there, okay then. All right, masks are in our future. Shutdowns are in our future. Businesses having problems are in our future. And if that's what people want, okay, fine. You can get it. But if they want changes, if they want to see something new come about and have a little more freedom, a little more independent decision, rather than coming from one or two people, like a Dottie Bauer Sox, then maybe we want to get some new aldermen in there. And maybe we'll get some new aldermen.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, we will see. We will know in April.
What do you guys want to do? All right, well, that'll close us out for today, huh?
Yeah. Yep, thanks.
You already covered your secret,
Yeah, oh, yeah, I
secret
did.
bombshell that you were going to drop
yeah.
on us?
Yeah, we covered it.
I didn't get injured by that, did you, George?
I did well with it. I looked it right up.
I heard the sirens and I got prepared. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. Come back and see us next Monday. We appreciate you.